I'm David Hazard, founder of Ascent, an international coaching program for authors. I'm here today to talk with Mary Ellen Connelly, author of Losing Bear, a memoir about her experience of the changes that happened in her relationship when it was discovered that her older brother had schizophrenia. Mary Ellen, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you, David. Good to be here.
I'm interested to know what inspired you to write your book, Losing Bear.
Well, I've always enjoyed writing about my life, and a few years ago I wrote a short piece about my relationship with Bear and how we were close when we were growing up, and he taught me to play guitar. And then...
Now, Bear is one of how many older brothers?
I have 5 brothers.
Oh, my.
4 older and 1 younger. Bear is my oldest brother.
I see. Okay. And he taught you how to play guitar?
He taught me to play guitar. He sang with me. We had this incredible closeness. And then when he was in his 20s and I was in college, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And it was a really tough experience for me to lose him to that disease. And I wrote a story about that a few years ago, and then last year when I decided I wanted to write a memoir, it was in speaking with you that we realized that this was a kind of story that could touch other people who have lost someone to either mental illness or addictions or dementia.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's so widespread in our culture, and it's becoming such an important issue for us to focus on, given all the problems with healthcare, insurance, people up in the air not knowing what to do to help their loved ones. And I love the fact that your book takes a very personal view of the relationship with someone who has been pulled into a severe mental illness like this. Tell us briefly what your book is about.
Well, it's about my relationship with Bear and how we were very close when we were young, and then what it has been like for me over all these years of having him pull away from me, losing him through the disease, basically, that he has.
Mm-hmm. And give us some examples of how you saw him pulling away, how you felt you were losing him.
Well, early on, when he was having some really severe symptoms, he was just not connected to anyone. You would look in his eyes and they would just be dead. And he lost all features in his face. I mean, he was just very, very flat. Wouldn't interact with you or talk to you much at all. Mm-hmm. And that's changed and varied at times over the years. Mm-hmm. But I just don't feel like I can talk to him or count on him for advice about anything as I used to.
Well, and interesting you should bring that up, because having worked with you through the memoir, you tell some very poignant stories about, being a young girl and beginning to develop relationships with boys and needing somebody in your life as kind of an older boy as a mentor to talk to you about the vagaries of teenage relationships. And it seemed that you had a good relationship with Bear.
Yes.
And he could give you advice on those sort of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Were there other ways you would characterize your relationship with him before the illness struck?
Well, music was a huge connection for us. He's loved music. He loved singing. He would play our albums, and we'd sing along in the living room and have a good time, dance and stuff. And he taught me to play guitar, and that was really special. It was something I wanted to do mostly just to get closer to him.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned a time much later in life, or somewhat later, when you were at I believe it was a grandparents' anniversary party, and the family got up to sing, and Bear was not there. Could you tell us about that experience a little bit?
Well, he was there. In that particular instance, he was there, but he was a little bit out of it. I mean, he was standing up there singing, and I guess I know this mostly from the picture, because you see us all singing, and he just kind of has that flat affect.
Mm-hmm. So there's the there but not there
Right.
experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I imagine there must be so many tens of thousands of people who have that experience with someone in their life.
Right.
The person is physically present but not there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, and you bring that out very poignantly in your book, this gap between the person who was and the person who's there now.
Right. Yeah.
Who do you think will benefit most from reading your book?
I think anyone who has someone in their life who is there but not there is lost to them, whether they've got an addiction and they're just not acting the way they used to and they're really not able to connect in the same way they used to, or an illness, mental illness, or a dementia. Just anybody that's got to deal with that and deal with those dueling feelings that you have of loving someone and wanting to be close to them, and yet a little bit afraid or a little bit just wary of what you're going to get when you talk to
Just
them.
apprehensive.
Apprehensive, yeah.
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 Do you find that sometimes it's sort of this, you have this sort of fragile feeling of, I don't want to say the wrong thing and I'm not sure what the right thing is to say? Is that part of
Yes.
the issue?
Yes, just some walking on eggshells. Just want to make sure that you don't set anything off, do anything wrong that's going to offend them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm guessing that's a very common experience
Yes.
for people dealing with someone with this kind of illness.
Yeah, I would think.
Did you make any interesting or unusual discoveries while you were working on this memoir?
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me was how different my experience was of losing Bear from my brothers. I have 4 other brothers, and I was just especially close to Bear and maybe more sensitive as a girl, or as the only girl. That my experience of losing him was very, very heart-wrenching and difficult. And while I can't say that it wasn't difficult for my other brothers, and I really can't speak for them, I just feel like mine was just a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
I also learned a lot more about schizophrenia. I finally did some research and learned what the disease does to the person, what it does to the family. And it was like encountering an old friend, reading about his symptoms more globally, that this really is how people are. And I think if I had known that earlier in my life, had made the effort to research it, I would have understood him a little better. It might have made it easier.
I imagine that when someone's going through an experience like this, you're just trying to manage the day-to-day relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I would suppose that the thought of going out and doing more research to understand what you're dealing with might be difficult for some people. Do you have any recommendations of how somebody can find good, simple but helpful information, in this case on schizophrenia?
Right. Well, there are certainly organizations out there that have a lot of information. The web is a wonderful resource. There are books on it that really go into depth about the disease and about how it impacts family as well as the person.
So you would recommend that family and friends become informed as well about the disease
I think
itself?
So. Yeah, I think I was sort of in denial, not wanting to know, maybe wanting to just relate to Bear as Bear, and didn't want to let go of my perception of who he was. But I think it would help to really know.
Mary Ellen, I have been coaching authors since 1978, and in my experience, just about everybody who goes through the process of writing a book, particularly a personal, very personal story like yours, goes through some kind of change or experiences an awakening. Did you experience that while you were writing this memoir?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think overall writing it was painful. There were many tears shed in the writing of this book, and the thinking about going back to those times that were very painful and difficult, but cathartic, and also learning more has just given me a more sense of calmness and peace about where we are.
Mary Ellen, if there is one thing that you hope your readers would take away from this book, what is it?
I just hope that people will learn from my story that there are different ways to cope with losing a loved one or dealing with someone who is there but not there for them. And that these dueling feelings of love and fear and hope and loss, they're normal, and that we have to just get on with our lives and find ways to cope with it.
Mary Ellen, thank you so much for your good work on this very moving memoir, and thank you for visiting with me today.
Thank you.
I'm David Hazard, founder of Ascent. I've been talking today with Mary Ellen Connelly, author of the book Losing Bear. If you're in need of coaching services, if you're in need of developing covers, page designs, web designs, please find us on the web at www.itsyourlifebethere.com.